It's Spider-Man. In today's episode, I will be doing a review of the Fairy Tale game. So let's begin. Gus's Fairy Tale was quite the experience. Why? Because beyond having its ups, its downs, it subverted the expectations of many fans, including myself. As a personal first, I have literally compiled an extensive script of everything I wish to discuss regarding this game because, like I said, there is so much to unpack. There is so much that I want to talk about that I had to make a script just to make sure I get all the points and all the details I want to talk about down. This includes the really good, the really bad, and the plain mediocre. I don't quite know how to go about it all, and I am sure many will leave with the opinion that I am a mere hater or troll just because I didn't like the fairy tale game. But to those people who consider me a troll, it is completely and utterly false, but your opinion is fine nonetheless. I do want to start off by just talking about my time in the fandom and my overall level of fandom for Fairy Tail. So, right off the bat, I do run the Fairy Tail and Hero Mashima Discord. I also run the Fairy Tail Reddit as well as other Mashima related Reddits. I have continued to try to expand my knowledge of the Tumblr and Twitter aspects of the fandom as the years go on, but with all these things I'm running, it's kind of hard to do. Additionally, I do own a lot of the Hero Mashima properties in physical form. This includes manga and light novels that were imported from Japan. Of course, I'm not gonna list everything because it'd be so time consuming and it'd be like so much to the point where it'd be like, okay, what's he trying to prove? But all in all, Fairy Tail is the franchise I love the most. The series I always love the most. I am a huge fan of Hiroshima. Like I said, I have all his physical properties, his manga and the light novels he's helped on. Now, now that we have this out of the way, the this little interrogation and these pleasantries, I do want to talk about the game, and I will break it up into a few sections. First was the introduction, which we just had. We will then move on to the gameplay and the mechanics, followed by my overall thoughts, which are the good and the bad, my overall final score, and lastly the DLC costumes plus season pass. Um, so if you're reading this or if you're listening to this, realize that there will be some slight arc spoilers for everything that happens after Tartaros. I will do my best not to spoil as much, but I will be talking about it in some extent. So let's begin. So as I said, the second section would be gameplay and mechanics. As far as gameplay and mechanics go, I just so you're aware right off the bat, I did buy the game on both PlayStation and Nintendo Switch. I bought the digital deluxe editions for both, as well as the guild box for the PlayStation 4. So that is my the game versions that I will be talking about. There is a Steam version, but I did not play the Steam version, so I cannot comment on that experience. Um, with that said, the gameplay and content is all the same for both versions of the game. The game itself is rather simplistic in its controls. It has a fairly straightforward tutorial that helps establish the layout of the game and how you will play it. Additionally, the story spaces out the characters you get to unlock, with the first two chapters you having the ability to choose between 7 characters of the main cast. Chapter 7 gets you 4 more, and then chapters 8 or 9 help you unlock 2 additional ones, and then the final one is unlocked during after you complete the epilogue. For obvious reasons of not wanting to spoil content, I am not mentioning which characters are unlocked, even though we know how many and which characters are available. With that said, once you complete the epilogue, you will be able to have the ability to make some characters as class wizards. which will then unlock certain aspects of the game, like missions and requests that you have to complete with these characters. This goes for all 16 playable characters. The game itself is a JRPG, which is like Fire Emblem, Dragon Age, and even Final Fantasy. So in terms of gameplay, it is more likely to match these games than, let's say, something like a Fallout or a Destiny or a Borderlands or something like a typical non-Japanese role-playing game. So in terms of the combat, there's quite a bit there, honestly. For starters, when engaging in combat, you can attack your enemy in the main world. So basically, you're traveling around and then you can just smack them, which will then grant you a boost. However, the same could be said if they attack you first, they will be granted a boost, which will give them the ability to attack first. If you have characters like Lucy, Sherry, or Wendy, or maybe all three, you get to unlock this little cute animation before the actual combat starts, which will then, if you trigger the cute animation, it will give you a chance to have all your characters attack first. So, and like I said, if you have the Sky Sisters, Wendy and Sharia, you get to unlock their Sky Sister dance that they had in the Lamia Scale Thanksgiving. For Lucy, if you have her on your roster, she oftentimes tries to do the captivative sexy pose where she tries to the thing she did in episode 1 or chapter 1 for those who read the manga or the anime when she's trying to get a discount for the Pluki. That's the pose she does during the cutscene, the cute little animation. It's really funny, but um as the game progresses it gets repetitive rather quickly. Now, in terms of the fighting, each of the 16 characters has obviously unique magic and attacks that affect different parts of the grid. Now, what do I mean by grid? I think of the combat zone as a chessboard. So your characters are in your position, the enemy's on another position, and you take turns attacking each other. Each magic and each character has different abilities to attack the board. Some will attack 4 by 4, so 4 squares total. Some will attack 3 squares in a straight diagonal line or a straight horizontal line. You could attack 3 squares in the shape of an L. There's so much variation in how you could attack. There's even a Z at some point for some, and in other cases, there's some moves that attack the whole board. As the fight progresses, you get to level up this meter that helps you do an ultimate move, which is every member in your roster, the 5 people in your roster, attacking at once. However, the sad truth is that most of the time, it's just a matter of using your strongest attacks because there is no real strategy needed in this game. And oftentimes, you will only use your ultimate move to help do some over damage, which I will get to later on. The combat system itself also has other aspects to it. It has attack with magic, of course, but it also gives you the ability to guard against an attack. You literally waste a turn just defending, or you attack with either a kick or a punch. So you don't you use a 1 bar of your magic meter, but you have if you're starting off, you have like 300 magic power, so it does nothing. There are instances where some of your attacks could be used to help start a counter. Additionally, there is the ability that when an enemy attacks, you unlock an awakening, which is essentially the game's version of Second Origin. Some characters have unique awakenings as you learn in the game, or if you read the series, you know what they are. And others, those without special forms, if you will, just have this weird Super Saiyan glow to them, and that's about it. For the awakening aspect, some have multiple versions of the awakening, some don't. It's it's not as fleshed out as it could. As you progress through the game, you will unlock extreme magic, which will help you in several ways. Some of these extreme magic are things that help heal you. Others will prevent you from dying. Even one of that, even one of these, is the 3x seeds. Not Frosh, Panther Lily, Happy, and Carla worshiping a fish, and a giant magic beam coming out. Oftentimes, these healing aspects of the extreme magic are done whenever or by random. You don't really have a say. Not to and to add to this, where you don't really have a say, the when you have the ultimate move, you're able to attack as a group, like I mentioned, but you have the ability to use extreme magic. When you use extreme magic, it'll give you one of various option. It'll show you one of various extreme magic attacks. So there's there's a couple of them, and I don't want to mention them by name, even if a simple Google search will give you the answer. But oftentimes you will get, depending on the combination chain, you will get the same same one, which would be Makarov, which again was already mentioned and shown in the game. There is one aspect of the combat system, however, that honestly you will forget about and you will not use. The only time I remembered about it or even paid attention to it was when I was trying to solo a boss fight that had two bosses in it. So so yeah, this next section of the combat isn't really used, and that aspect is the item option. As you progress throughout the game, you'll unlock items. Some will replenish your magic, some will replenish your health, some will do both. Others can help cure your ailments, like if you're paralyzed or burned by the attacks. Some will revive a fallen teammate, but like I said, I didn't really use this, and you honestly won't because the difficulty doesn't really matter in the game, which again kind of is a detriment, but I will expand definitely on that later. Um from there I do want to talk about the lacrimas you can equip, because there is a variety of lacrima you can equip on your characters at any time. You could even create them. They will give you stat boost or character specific bonuses, which then help and improve your character. Honestly, though, it has a feature where it will auto assign them for you, and it does a good enough job for you so you don't have to worry about going through your entire lacrima list and trying to figure out which one should I get for this character, which one should I get for that character, because m- more times than not, it'll give you the the lacrima that are good enough for your character. And with that said, you can create your own lacrima, and I already mentioned the items above, but you could also go to the item shop and buy items. But the sad truth is that these two features are essentially pointless because you don't really use them and you don't really have to use them. It's where it's a extra thing that was in the game and they wanted to make it seem like it was needed for the game, but it really wasn't. You don't realize much of these features are missing because because of the game's simplicity and easiness, which will which I will discuss further on. And this, as I finish talking about the combat system, I do want to talk about the mechanics and the rebuilding of the guild. As you progress throughout the story, you will be able to upgrade certain parts of the guild. These areas help give you bonuses in terms of characters on your party getting X amount of XP. There's a percentage. The more you upgrade that portion of the guild, the bigger the percentage of XP they get. Drop rates for items increasing from the creatures you fight and defeat. Getting free items from the cache shop, from the cache and essentially the lost and found, and even have the whole guild have mini parties where, depending on how many characters you have unlocked, you could have them party in the guild, and that's a feature that's only available in the guild, like most of these. There is also the ability to link hunt, which I will be elaborating on soon. But one thing I do want to point out is that you can renovate each section 5 times and then essentially upgrade it a total of 10 times. The more you renovate and upgrade, the better the boost for your content will be. Obviously, you need to have the necessary materials and money, but as you progress throughout the game, that should be relatively easy to acquire. Now, going back to the link hunt, this is, to simplify it, is a very basic horde mode. You press one of the trigger buttons, and it'll continuously go up. Then you essentially press another button, and it'll let you fight that number of creatures. So let's say you press the button and it stops around 45. You will fight 45 creatures. The maximum amount of creatures is 99 you could fight, and the maximum level for these creatures is 99. It does help in terms of grinding and level progression for your characters, but again, you don't want to spend the whole time just grinding and progressing your character, because the whole purpose of the game is for you to develop and level up as the game progresses. You can use these link hunt battles for a variety of things. Like I said, you could grind for materials. You could even use them to help clear the filled areas where you have to do a certain amount of damage in one attack for it to be considered over damage and for the debris to be removed. So link hunts are very helpful. Now, going back to link parties, which is essentially unlocked around the same time as link hunt, and is essentially like link hunt, but for the 16 playable characters. Like I said, there is 16 playable characters, and this link party system is essentially the guild having a party and interacting with one another. This is useful because it helps create character bonds, which will then unlock pieces of dialogue and cutscenes for them. So, the more these characters bond, or the more you use two characters, the more they bond, which will then give you cutscenes for them that are unique to the game. There are a total of 173 cutscenes, and each character can bond with the other up to 3 times. So there's 3 tiers to it. The bonus of having these upgraded all the way to the 3 tiers is you get help with the chain attacks for your ultimate. It helps in unison rate and stuff like that. Additionally, as you progress through the game, you will have the ability to do this unison raid, which are basically the dual attacks from two characters. Now, not all of the characters have a unison raid that is animated, but there is a small portion that do. In regards to the world map, it's very easy to use. When you have a quest, the destination will have a giant exclamation point, so you know where to go. It is animated, so the map itself is animated in the sense that the ocean has the waves going, You have birds migrating from right to left, left to right, top to bottom, so on and so forth. But that's about it. It's interactive in that sense, but there's not much more to it. It gives you the locations, but nothing else. It's cute to look at and it's good, but there's not much you could do with the world map. As far as the mini map, it's it's a little bit more confusing because sometimes in areas that are actually big, they the map itself doesn't give good directions and you just get a little confused. But the big areas are like far and few between, so it doesn't really make a difference. That's honestly the truth. As far as the characters themselves go, each character has a unique way of walking. So like Ichigo has his unique way, so on and stuff like that. Not to mention that at any given moment, you're able to switch between the characters. So let's say you're trying a combination of Ichigo, Mira Jane, Natsu, Lucy, and Wendy as your team. If you press one of the triggers, it will let you switch between the characters. By doing so, the way they run and the way they run will change, and obviously their height because not all the characters are the same height, which is I thought refreshing because it gave you a sense of okay, you're actually playing as this character, you're actually playing as that character. Additionally, if you want to level up your characters in the sense of not level wise, but like think of it as a rank wise, then you have that ability once you complete guild request and missions, you get guild credit, if you will, and it lets you level up your character. There's a total of 10 levels, and they grant you new magic, a new costume, a new magic chain move, and stuff like that, which benefits the character and your the group it'll be in. How one thing I do want to talk about is some of the stuff you need to go to Lucy's apartment to do, such as the change of the suits. You could even re-experience earlier missions and earlier dialogue in Lucy's apartment. So Lucy's apartment does play a huge role in the game. One thing I do really briefly want to touch on is the load screens. They lasted a bit longer on the Switch than I thought they would. On the PS4, I hardly noticed any at all. But in the event when I did have a load screen, you could use Happy. So you have Happy in the bottom left corner, and you could use him to smack away the now loading stuff with his fish. So it's basically like if you're playing baseball. It was a rather unique way to pass the time with these load screens. So, like I said, there wasn't that many, but it was rather fun when I did get it to be able to use Happy and just try to smack all the now loading away. If you play the game on the Switch, and this is me speaking from experience, like I said, then you will run into issues like poor frame rate. It makes the game look super choppy when characters are running, and some of the combat does seem a bit out of like I said, choppy. It just doesn't look good in the handheld mode. On the dock mode, it's a little better, but it's still noticeably different than on the PS4. On the PS4, I was using the Spider-Man PS4 Pro, so I'm not sure if that mattered, but I did not run into my any issues. The only small glitch that I had was when I was using one of Lucy's star dresses, and it kind of gave you a choppy look to it when she was doing the chance animation that I talked about above. But other than that, there was no issue for the PS4. And like I said, it could be because I was on a PS4 Pro, but that's just my overall experience with the game. overall thoughts, the good. The game has some good. It really does. Like, I'm not trying to just say that because I'm gonna say something bad. It really does a lot. It really does have some good, and the lot that it does have that is good is great. It's one of the best things I've seen from an anime game. The 16 characters, like I said, have unique fight styles, and their overall experience is quite fun. You can run around like Ichigo and go through missions to see how fun it is to run like him, or even be like, man, it's literally an experience. It's one of the best and funniest things I did. I went from running as Loxus with my coat floating to Ichigo, who looks like he's running and is struggling to run. One bright spot, in my opinion, was these chance animation sequence featuring Lucy, Wendy, Sharia, or Wendy and Sherry. Like I said, when Lucy tries to do this chance animation, she does the little cute wink and nod. The Sky Sisters do a solo a solo song, or the dual song that they have. And it's really fun. The game progression itself, where you are intrigued to see how to play and who to play as, is fun. For example, as you progress through the story, you can unlock the characters, and then that lets you build your team a certain way. It gives you a feeling of what a different team dynamic would give Team Natsu. It also helps in the sense that you don't feel so overwhelmed with the variety of options you have for the characters. It helps it helps right off the bat, and it helps you establish a team and the possible replacements you want to play as. As far as myself, well, my team consisted of Natsu, Lucy, Wendy, Urza, and Jalal. I did have an alternate team. That team consisted of Gajio, Juvia, Greg, Kagura, and Sharia. Honestly, this ability to team build gives me further belief that Jalal should have joined Fairy Tail, and that Gray should have had his own team, but I've discussed that a lot, and maybe I'll have a full in-depth conversation some other day. Like I mentioned, there are a total of 173 pieces, 173 of character conversations you could have between all 16 characters. This literally helped flesh out the world, and it helped you feel like you were a part of the world. There are so many great interactions, and I don't want to give away all of them, but I will give away some just so you could see the level of care that they had. For me, the funniest one was Ichigo trying to get Gray to join Blue Pegasus. It happened for the few interactions that they had. Another one was Sharia asking Lucy about true love because of Lucy and Natsu's bond, and Lucy's reaction to that. We also got dorky ones like Kagura and Lucy, where they're talking about Urza, which is hilarious. We have Guildarts talking to Mira Jane and talking about how he's like a super old dad because he saw Mira Jane in Sorcerer Weekly. And then we have Natsu showing admiration for Juvia and her magic. So it really does give you something that the main series never did. It helps give you a breath of fresh air and a way where these characters would interact and how they would interact and what they would say when they interacted, which was incredible. I can't praise that enough because it honestly did something that the main series really couldn't do. It gave you these connections that these characters have, and it was just amazing. And obviously, you needed to complete story missions to unlock these bonds, and once you unlock the bonds, you were able to unlock the character dialogues. So that's that's expected, and that's kind of a rewarding way to continue doing your story missions or your request missions because you want to see these interactions, you want to see these conversations they're having. Another thing I do want to bring up is the music. It was amazing. Was it the music from the series? No. but to expect to have the music from the series was a bit ridiculous in my opinion because the amount of licensing and legal shit that had to go through for that to happen would have been too much. But the music itself was incredible. It truly made you feel like you were part of the world, that you were in Magnolia, that you were exploring Ishgar. I say Ishgal, but for many it's Ishgar. It really the main theme was so catchy that when I pre-ordered the game, which was when it first was announced digitally, I had the theme for the PlayStation 4, and I was humming it the whole time. It got to the point where me and my wife would hum it unknowingly, and we'd just be like, and then we'd be like, "Oh God, we're singing fairy tale." Not that it's a bad thing that we're singing fairy tale, but like it was that addictive. That was is that fun. The music itself wasn't overbearing. It wasn't too. It wasn't bad. Like I said, it was truly amazing. It helped the game and the player be immersed with one another. The aspect of the game that benefited heavily from the soundtrack was the background of the world maps, which was, let's say you're in Magnolia, the background and the world around you, it really benefited from the music because you felt like it was a part of it. It was incredible. I will not talk a lot about the voice acting because, much like the music, we already know the voice actors from the anime. They did an incredible job. You feel like you are honestly reliving the story and you are reliving new pieces of dialogue that you didn't see. It honestly made me miss the anime, regardless of how I felt the anime itself was. It made me miss it. It makes me hope that there will be a sequel series for fairy tales in anime form. I know there is for the manga, Fairy Tale 100 Years Quest, but I do hope they adapt it into an anime because it truly made me miss the world, the characters, and the interactions between them. There is exclusive content that Mashimo made for the series, for not for the series, but for the game that Mashimo made for the game, but not that was not in the series, like the unison rays between some characters, including fan favorites Natsu and Lucy. If I counted correctly, and like I said, it the game took a while to complete. There was roughly 12 unique unison rays, maybe less, but there was only that. And what I mean by unique unison raids, I mean those that had an actual animation and had them actually, you know, doing something together. Um, there that was I just can't explain how much I love that because oftentimes we've dreamed of having, oh, what if this character and this character had a unison raid? And in this game, depending on the two characters, they might actually have a unison raid that you will like, that you will be like, oh my god. The the only issue I had was that there were 16 characters and roughly only 12 unison raids. It just seemed to be the bare minimum. Now I realize Mashima's busy, but it just seems like why do a little bit? Why not try to do more? One thing I do want to add is that some of the side missions did help build the world more. And what I mean by that is some of them were the fairy tale of the Deromake being turned into a mission, which was hilarious. One of the best missions I've played. Gajio and Juvia teaming up for a Phantom Lord reunion. Even if you don't actually see the characters, but you know they are mentioned by name. We learned about these characters' exploits and stuff like that. So it did a good job of trying to bring the world closer together. And I did touch on it on in the mechanics aspect. One of the best things about the game was Lucy's apartment. I'm not trying to be a creep, but like the content you can access in her apartment was just incredible. You can, like I said, access all the costumes and wardrobes each of the 16 characters have. You can relive all 173 character interactions you have unlocked. You can read up on the terminology, the characters, and even the past arcs to better understand the series for the newcomers, or just those who want to revisit the old chapters, old arcs without having to actually watch the anime or read the manga. Once you have music unlocked, which you unlock as you progress throughout the missions, you can play them in her apartment. One of the best things about this part is that as you progress through the game, there is incredibly funny interactions in Lucy's apartment with Lucy. They range from Natsu to Gray to even the whole guild. They really do seem well thought out and fun. There was Gray and Lucy's hot tub, which was just weird. There was Natsu in the roof or on the roof of Lucy's bathroom, which was hilarious. Urza and Wendy sleeping in Lucy's bed. And then out of nowhere, 16 playable characters appearing in her room for a little party because Natsu invited them over. It really felt like you were in Lucy's apartment experiencing these things with her. They really gave me that feeling that the manga was coming to life because some of these interactions were from the manga. So it really felt like, oh look, this really does happen. And while it isn't something huge to look at, the world map was fun. Like I said, it was interactive and it was lively. It really brought perspective to the world of the series, and it helped focus on where you were. The good, like I said, were honestly good. They were great, amazing even. But I couldn't help the fact that I felt so underwhelmed overall, and I'll get to that right now. Overall thoughts, the bad. Now, I want to start off by saying if I do sound frustrated, it's because I really am because of the bad that was in the game. The one thing I will mention, but not go into detail about, is that the non-series characters being essentially holograms that you could walk through didn't bother me. It didn't. In all honesty, it wasn't a huge deal. It it seemed like a non-issue that people try to make an issue. Another aspect that was heavily discussed was the localization of the names and as well as the dialogue. Like Kana, Alperona, or other stuff of that nature. It was honestly nothing major and it was nothing that really put me off. But like I said, let's talk about the bad. For me, the bad was just bad. It was something that held the game back. It was something that, even though I may have enjoyed the game, just disappointed me to the point where I couldn't really enjoy the game anymore. I will start off with the most important. Difficulty meant nothing. Absolutely nothing. The hard difficulty plays like easy, and easy plays like super easy. There's no real challenge in the game. You can run around doing whatever, and most of the time, you won't have to worry about having to pick up an item, use an item, or go to the shop. And then that's the big issue because you would think that making lacrimas would be fun with a character, but you didn't. For my entire playthrough, I literally ran through the enemies without having to use items, which was disappointing. If I'm playing it on the hard difficulty, what is the point of having a difficulty system if you can't even do it correctly? What's the point of having a hard if I won't be struggling or if I won't be needing to use items? The only reason I remember items and lacrima making are because of the guild activities that I need to complete, and because I was actually, like I said, I was writing this review and I was trying to break down what I needed to talk about. I was like, oh wait, there is items. It's just bad. And like I said, it isn't needed. I still soloed two bosses with Natsu, and it wasn't hard. It's just it was horrible. Why have a difficulty system if it's not gonna be difficult? The locations themselves are beautiful. Beautiful scenery, beautiful background. But honestly, and if this is me being honest with you, they are nothing more than glorified mazes. Get to this point of the map. Oh wait, don't forget you can't go in a straight line. You have to go around, fight these enemies as you go around because God forbid we make the game even easier and have you go in a straight line. It wasn't tedious or annoying at first because I was experiencing the world and having fun. But then as you progress through the essentially feeling infinite number of requests and community service missions, you're just over it. You're like, okay, yes, yes, I'll go here and yes, I get it, okay. And if that's not bad enough, the missions, and I don't mean the main storyline missions, but the community service missions and the request missions are just tedious and boring. They are repetitive and disappointing. Sure, each has about 50 or so missions each, but they are all the same thing. For request, it is to fight and defeat X number of creatures, then rinse and repeat. If you're lucky, it's go to this location, find this item, but we're gonna put these creatures in front of them, on front of these items, so you have to battle them. But sometimes you could just go around and just pick up the item. For a community request, you have to pick up certain items and then turn them in. These items you will as you go throughout the maps, you get to pick them up, or if you fight certain creatures, you have a chance of getting them because they drop them. So let's say you need an item. For me, for example, I needed an item that was found in Akana Beach. All I did was literally pick up the item, left the map, came back to the map, picked up the item again, and repeated until I was done with the necessary amount I needed. It just it was just an inspired, repetitive chore list. I get having the main storyline be like that, but to have all the side missions be that is simply unacceptable and disappointing. Sure, there are some cute and amazing interactions as you start these missions, these little cutscenes that you get when you're starting or accepting missions, but then the missions themselves are just do this, pick up this, return this. It's just, I can't, I just can't put it into words. Now, once you finish the game, and by that I mean the epilogue chapter, you can continue to explore the world if you want. But truth be told, there isn't much more to explore. There are two different types of missions, the 10-year and 100-year missions, but like I said, they are boring, lazy, and uninspired. They are glorified, repeated story missions, fights with characters you have already fought. It is rehashing storyline content and trying to paint it as a new mission. There are a total of 12 of these, and they are nothing more, like I said, than boss fight. It, it was honestly so boring and repetitive that there's a feature to just remove the animation from your fight, and I did that just so I could just get it over with and be done with it. Because I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, you're gonna do this move, we're gonna do this move. I just want to see the damage that we do. A game shouldn't make you feel like that. It really shouldn't. It just it just shouldn't. Why am I feeling like that with a game of a series I love? That's unacceptable. The game itself boasts that it's the story arcs which cover Tenro's conclusion, the Grand Magic Game, Sun Village, but not really. Tartarus and the two arcs that follow it, Avatar and Alberth, but not really. It does it all so poorly. It is funny because honestly, the only two arcs it does well are the one I love the most, Tenro, and the one I dislike the most, Tartarus. Tenro is great because it helps introduce the combat, some of the overall mechanics, and some of the move sets and stuff like that. Tartarus was great because it really felt like you were overwhelmed, ignoring the fact that you are able to play as non-fairy tale characters inside Tartarus, but it's fine. It felt like you were facing huge odds. But then we have arcs like the Grand Magic Games, which was a shell of itself, skipping so much content that it just baffled me. There was so many portions that were cut off because it didn't have fairy tale fighting. Like, the none of the fights that happened in the arc itself are in the game unless it features Team Fairy Tale. And even then, you don't have Rufus. You don't have Orga. You don't have Jura. You don't have the chariot race. You don't have almost anything that made that arc so special, so incredibly fun. When the dragons, when we are facing the dragons, so like when the Dragon Slayers for the first time face dragons, none of that happens. You don't see the Dragon Slayers fight the dragons. You don't see Cobra struggle. You don't see Sting and Rogue fight helplessly, even though Sting and Rogue are actually in the game. It honestly felt like a very, very bare bones summary of what the arc was, and that's a disappointment. There's no other way to say it. We didn't even freaking get the banquet or the interaction they all had with one another. The There was so much missed content that I would honestly recommend people reread the manga instead or people watch the anime instead because this arc was done such a disservice in the game. I don't even want to get into the fact that the Sun Village arc was completely glossed over and ignored. You have Flare in the game as a playable character. Well, as a character you fight, not a playable character. She does help in a mission if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember off the top of my head. But you don't get her arc where it plays a huge role. Really, like really, we're gonna be doing this now. And if that's not bad enough, if that is not bad enough, the epilogue is essentially the Avatar and Albereth. I say Albereth. I know some people say Alvarez. Arcs spliced into one storyline. One very jumbled, messy, sloppy, disgusting storyline. It was so abysmal. I honestly can't put into words how bad it was. Yes, we have some interactions between the main cast from the manga, but the villains they face are faceless, nameless villains. We have an unnamed boss fight, and it's just frustrating because the manga readers and the anime watchers they know what these arcs are supposed to be in Avatar and Alvarez or Alvarez, and it's not there. like okay, Natsu's entrance in chapter 417 where he's cloaked and he's walking into Thomas Flau, and he's mysterious, was one of the, if not the best, entrances in the series of all time for me. The game, it just shows you Natsu walking like a jackass and saying hi, hi Lucy, and you know, it it just it it's just this game could have been so much more than it was. We have Natsu fighting the one of the war gods, and he does use the Flame Dragon King mode, but there is no villains from Avatar. It was just these characters reintroduce themselves. Let's fight generic boss fight. Okay, let's move on. It's bad. It was bad. We then have their attempt at Alvarez, which was the result of Makarov disbanding the guild. But instead of being an Alvarez, he is in Tenro. Instead of the team fighting Agio and August, we get some faceless boss fight in Tenro where Makarov then decides he should come back. It was beyond disappointment. I was embarrassed to play the epilogue because of how unfaithful it was to the arcs. I was just appalled. I don't know what to say. We could have honestly had Alvarez as DLC. If you think about it, we didn't need Makarov to restart the guild. We saw that. We had Urza, yet they rushed to have it in the game and it was just awful. Here's my pitch. The easiest and best solution would have simply been to add the game's version of the Avatar arc, but instead of having nameless villains, they could have had Avatar there like Alok, Abel, Briar, D6, and Goman. They could have been added to the fight, and if anything, when fighting Alok, you could have had it like when you fought Future Rogue. Have Ikusa Tsunagi in the back. So it was essentially a dual boss fight. From there, we could have had it where we get the reunion and Urza is being made the guildmaster. We wouldn't have needed Makarov to be in the guild running it. It wouldn't have done the final arc a disservice like it did. But no, we had to have this clusterfuck of a mess that simply did not live up to the arcs, regardless of how you felt about these arcs. They adapted chapter 436, and it was really good in my opinion. But they decided to do these epilogue arcs, which are Alvarez, and Avatar, just so bad. It baffles me. It frustrates me because it could have been good. In the good, I did mention that the character interactions, the unison rates, and even the character models that are in the game are amazing. And I stand by that. I really do. But I also feel cheated because not every character has a character model. Take me Liana, for instance. We interact with her in the Grand Magic Games, but we don't have a character model for her. We use certain celestial spirits, but they don't have a character model. We talk to certain characters, but they don't have a character model. They just have a photo image to show that they are talking to these characters. We recognize the voices from the anime, but they couldn't have a character model. What was the point of having them in the game if you were going to have a character model? You cut characters and portions of arcs from the game. You may as well cut these characters because this just screams laziness, incompetence, and it's just disappointing. I know I keep saying words like laziness, frustrating, lack of care, and all these other negative adjectives. But it is that when you have interactions like Gray and Ichiya, but you don't have Ichiya and Jalal or Ichiya and Loxus, you have Gray and Sting interacting, but not Lucy and Sting or other characters of the nature. Like I said, there are 173 interactions among the 16 characters. Not all these characters have interactions. And like I said, these interactions help boost their compatibility, which helps with the combat. But let's say these two characters don't have dialogue. You just get the little scene where it says, "Congrats, you moved to the tier 2 or rank." I'm not tier, but like rank 2, rank 1, rank 3. It was just it was bad. It would have been better if they had spent their time and given each of these characters a unique interaction. How is it that Ichigo and Loxus have an S class mission together and interact and have fun, but outside of that mission, they can't have a small dialogue or a small cutscene? Like, really, dude? Yeah, I know. I sound like an old guy with the really, dude. But really? You're able to do that for the mission, but you can't do that outside the mission? This is just something that happens throughout the game. These shortcuts, this bare minimum work. The same goes for the unison raids. I understand that not everybody gets a unison raid, but I mean, really? We couldn't get the Dragon Slayers to have a unison raid? Really? It's you could have just put their wars together and that's it. We couldn't do that. It's just it's disappointing. If the worst part, if you have a different character costume on than the main one for the game, all the animation and awakening abilities will just make you glow like a Super Saiyan. So let's say you're in Tartaros and you have this one scene with a character and they're supposed to have this transformation. If they're not in the main attire, you won't get it. The only character where it doesn't happen with, who it doesn't happen with, I'm sorry, is Lucy. Every other character, if you're not in the main outfit, it won't unlock the animation. How is it that Lucy will, but these other characters won't? It's frustrating. It's lazy. It's 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 what this game is. It's just lazy. There is so much that could be taken and be made into a good game here, but all these shortcuts, all this laziness, all this half work, it just brings the game down. It really does. And this leads me to my final verdict of the game. Okay, sorry, I had to compose myself. The final verdict. Well, I spent roughly 90 hours between the Switch version and the PlayStation 4 version. All in all, I'm only missing the trophy for fighting a rare beast, which is almost impossible to predict when that will be, given that I went about doing all the missions available when they became available. It really isn't something that I realized was a trophy. Like, so there's a max rank your guild could reach per chapter. I was those max ranks your guild could reach. For the longest time, if I didn't progress to another chapter, I wasn't able to progress my guild rank. I was making sure to do each of the missions because I wanted to make sure I gave a full, detailed, and honest review of the game. And honestly, early on, I did enjoy the game. I enjoy the character progression and the game progression, but as the game continued, it became more and more telling to me that this game was just so much missed potential in various aspects of it. Overall, the game felt hollow. Sure, it had a beautiful music and the beautiful background, but there was no real substance. There was no real meat to this game. It just felt empty. It's honestly hard to put into words because I want to describe it, but I can't because it's it's so hard to explain how hollow it was. If you're looking to complete the game to 100% or to unlock all the trophies on the PlayStation 4, it honestly shouldn't take you anywhere longer than 30 to 40 hours, give or take. One of these challenges, oh god, I hate this one. So there is one of these trophies or these challenges that is finding 50 pieces of candy flu for content that you can be used in Lacrima. So you could, it gives you certain content and you could use it to make a Lacrima. But like I mentioned in the bad, you don't really need to create Lacrimas because you don't really need them. Honestly, to put things in perspective, the Fairy Tail game had been in production for 2 years from the official start of development, and the 4 years from when we started the initial planning process, which is what the producer said. And that's fine. So 4 years to process, or 4 years from the processing, and 2 years from the development. But we got nothing in terms of content. We got nothing. We got the bare minimum. I have played some Sword Art Online games. I've played other games. I even played the Seven Deadly Sins game, and they were more immersive and more thought out. Of course, they were not Koei Tecmo or Gust, so maybe that's the reason why. Ultimately, I have said as much as I can about the game without repeating myself or my main points, which is why the word I will use to describe this game is underwhelming. Why underwhelming? Because it simply failed to impress. It was rather disappointing. There was so much promise here, but it did not meet the standard it should have set up for itself. It was honestly so upsetting. You don't realize how upset, how frustrated I am that the one fairy tale game we get is it's like they have the material they need in the manga and even the anime that they could use as guide, but they still manage to screw it up. It's just intentionally setting up yourself for failure. It honestly makes me wonder, could Bandai Namco have done a better job with the Fairy Tail game? Like I said, they made a Seven Deadly Sins game, and it wasn't as bad as people argued. So would Bandai Namco actually have made a better Fairy Tail game? It will always leave me wondering, what if? Now that I got the game review out of the way, I do want to talk about the DLC costumes and the season pass. So the DLC is the final portion, like I said, that I'm gonna discuss. It was introduced on the 6th of August, and it is 3 character costume packs. Each pack contains 16 costumes, so one per six per the 16 playable characters, and the season pass. I'll get the price and break it down, but let's just go over some few things. The base game costs $59.99. The digital deluxe costs you $74.99. So the extra $15 gets you the Fairytale Team A costumes, which were essentially for Team Natsu. The 5 growth lacrima, which are XP boost, if you will. The and the Riza costume for Lucy from another Gust series. Now, the season pass includes 5 growth lacrima, like I said, XP boost, 4 playable characters in Levi, Leon, Lisana, and Elfman, additional requests, which are the missions, and an additional dungeon by So, by all accounts, this looks to be a new area. The cost of this season pass is $60. So, for $60, not no, not 60, for 60 more dollars that you already paid for from the main game, if you didn't pay the 75, you are paying for extra characters, some extra missions, and XP boost. Sure, at face value, and if you're not looking at the price, it seems like a good deal for those who want to continue their fairy tale journey. But then you look at the price, and it begs the question: is it worth it? Is the $60 price for the season pass worth it? No. Fuck no. It's not. And it will never be unless it's on sale. So I'm gonna break it down for you guys. You get, and you know what? No, I'm not gonna break it down just yet. I'm gonna talk about the character packs. Like I said, there is three character costume packs. The anime final season, which is the 16 costumes that the characters wear during the final season for $39.99 or $349 per costume. The swimsuit pack, which is ridiculous because it's literally essentially the swimsuits in the game, just a different color, for $39.99 for the pack or $349 per costume. And then the final pack, which is the dress up pack, which is costumes that are from the volume 50 postcards from the limited edition manga released in Japan, which are again $39.99 for the 16 costumes or $349 per costume. So now let's break it down. So let's say you want to get all the DLC. You're a huge fan of the series and you want to support the game and the franchise. The DLC alone cost you $180. You are paying 3 times the amount of the base game for 48 costumes, 4 characters, 1 dungeon, and some extra missions, and 5 growth lacrima. You are paying $180. The base game has 16 playable characters, 58, I'm sorry, character costumes, and 55 missions, not including the community service. And that's $60. If you get the digital deluxe edition, then you could just add another 7 DLC costumes, bringing your total to 65 costumes and the 5 growth lacrima. So for $75, you're still getting more than you would for the $180 price point of the DLC. That is ridiculous. I guarantee you that after the 12th of August, or whenever, either the 12th or the 13th of August, which is when the Urza DLC is off, these the digital deluxe content will be priced at $15 and people will buy it. This doesn't include the fact that I fully expect Gust and Koei Tecmo to make Minerva and Flare characters you can buy at a later date. It honestly wouldn't surprise me because their character models are already in the game. They already interact with you in the game, and in some cases, they do join you in missions. Given that they're doing this with Leon, Levi, Lisana, and Alphen, it really wouldn't surprise me. It just so this is why Leon and Levi are being released this month because they already have the moveset and the character models for them. Lasana and Alphen do have the character models, but they don't have the moveset. So these people are these people blatantly held content just to sell it. So yes, I do expect Minerva and Flare to be options or part of a season pass too. Honestly, It's a shame. It's a shame that such disgusting business practices happen, and it's even more disgusting that the community at large will eat this content up and buy it. The company withheld. This is fucking upsetting. We have the freaking Avatar and Alvarez arc. We have them in the game, but the company withheld the final anime season costumes from the game for the sole purpose to make the fan base buy them because they know they will. You know the most frustrating part? The game lacks overall content. You could have added the 48 skin packs, or not the 48 skin packs, the 48 costumes. You could have added them to the game, made them challenge rewards or unlockable after playing a certain character mission or after getting this character bond discussion or dialogue. You could have had them unlocked. But no, they decided to insult the fandom and treat them like needy, stupid fucks who will buy the game, and I can assure you a lot will buy the game and that DLC. It, it's ridiculous. You have the Avatar arc, you have the Albereth arc, but you don't have their costumes. What? What? That's withholding content. It's just infuriating because it's it's companies like this that make other companies realize that people will buy anything, and it's sad. This DLC sums up my overall thoughts of the game. Underwhelming. The game was delayed twice, yet we see that content got cut for the sake of making a quick buck. You cannot tell me that Leon wasn't cut, or that Flare wasn't cut, or that these character costumes that are less than a fucking megabyte were cut, weren't cut from the game. We, the developer, and I'm not sure if this is Gust or Koei Tecmo or even both, but they didn't care enough about the property. There was so much promise. There honestly could have been a good game underneath it all, but it's covered by all this unnecessary nonsense, this laziness, and it's just underwhelming. If you're listening to this, or even if you're reading this on Reddit, I hope you don't spend $180 on the DLC. Hell, I wouldn't even condone spending the $60 for the game itself. I really wouldn't. But for me to expect that, it's like expecting Gust and Koei Tecmo to get it together, which won't happen because expecting Koei Tecmo to get it together is like expecting the Dead or Alive series to be good and not sell hair colors, or, yes, I said hair colors because they did in fact sell hair colors for their characters, or to sell costume packs for nearly $100. It's I'm at a loss for words, guys. Thank you for reading if you read it on Reddit, or thank you for listening if you listen to it on YouTube. I do plan to do more reviews and analysis type posts in the future, so if you're interested, please let me know. Thank you.